Pretend with me. Good morning, class. Second grade is an incredible grade. And I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in a family of 14 kids, 2 in heaven that were never born and 12 on earth. So there were 6 boys and 6 girls. And we used to do storytelling with each other. My grandfather would tell us stories, my dad would play music, and we would have evenings of the fireplace going and singing. And also, we had really tough times too, where there was yelling and disagreements. And so I think every family has things like that happen. I'm coming to your class today because I wanted to tell you a couple stories of my life in growing up and how I encountered God, realizing that He was with me. Or I can tell you a story from the story box, and that's one that I made up. It's about something true, but I'm not going to explain it to you. I want you to work on it in your heart. Well, I'll do the 7th bird for you right now. This is a sample of a story from the story box. 7 birds were captured from the wild and placed in this tall steel cage, but there were only 6 perches. And so there was a lot of squawking and flapping and fighting, and they were trying to get to the highest perch to be closest to the sky that they were taken from. A single feather floated to the ground below, and everything was quiet. The fighting was over. And on the top perch was the strongest bird, and he was strutting back and forth, sticking out his chest feathers and saying in bird language, "I'm the strongest bird in this cage. I fought for this perch and nobody's going to take it from me." And on the second perch was the second strongest bird. And he said in bird language, "Well, I'm the second strongest bird in this cage and I fought for this perch and nobody's going to take it from me." And all the way down they said the same thing except for the 7th bird who was stuck at the bottom of the cage. Now, it's an awful thing to be stuck at the bottom of a bird cage, especially with 6 birds above you. And so pondering this fact, the 7th bird called up in bird language, "Excuse me, is there any room for me up there?" And they all shouted down bird insults and said, "Be quiet, there's no room for the weak, there's no room for you." And he shrugged his wings and hung his head, and he was so sad, but then he heard a noise just over one of his wings. He turned to look, and the cage door at the bottom of the cage had come loose and swung open. The hunter had forgotten to lock the cage. So being a very kind bird, he called to the others, "We can get out. Everybody right now, come with me. We can get out of the cage." But they all yelled louder in bird language, "We said to be quiet down there. We're the strongest birds and we don't listen to the weak, so be quiet." And they put their wings over their ears and made sounds. And the 7th bird, shrugged his wings and just flew out to a nearby branch. And he still tried to call to them, but they were making all this noise. They made so much noise that the hunter heard this and came over and locked the cage door. And all the birds stopped, looked down at the door, looked out at the 7th bird, and then you should have heard them squawk. Well, the 7th bird couldn't do any more, so he just flew up through the trees and into the warm blue sky. He could still hear them squawking in the cage below, but the noise became quieter and quieter until it faded away altogether. That's a story from the story box. Now, I can tell you a real life story or a story from the story box, or I can sing you a song.
Thank you for coming today, because everything you told us was exactly what we've been studying. So we studied the Litany of Humility, and when you came in and you talked to them about the 7 birds, it was exactly where we left off, and the power of prayer and the Holy Spirit bringing it all together. Thank you so much.